Welcome, Dylan Bond, to the Axiometric podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Dylan, you're the guy who introduced me to Metatron. Metatron's cube, about 10 years ago.
Guilty.
In a coffee shop. Why do you make this stuff?
Well, sir, partly for the satisfaction of like pulling off a thing. It almost forces you toward perfection, or else it falls apart. The patterns when you're creating them.
So you're talking about the lengths, the angles, the size of the circles.
Everything has to stay pretty close to exact for it to come out really sharp.
And it's the only way it could come out.
Right.
Once you're following the rules, it's fundamentally self-replicating at that point.
Yeah. It's a kind of a requirement, which makes it a very true thing.
Right. That's right. That's where we're coming from at axiometric. Axiom being a self-evident statement of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And geometry being just fundamentally true.
Yeah.
And the platonic solids, those are the platonic solids because it couldn't be any other way.
Yeah.
It is that way.
Yeah. They all their points fit inside of a sphere equally.
Right.
The platonic solids. Which is pretty cool. And
right.
It's a nice thing to come across when you're surrounded by lies.
Right.
A world full of lies.
Right. So this is sort of like a refuge.
It's like a refuge.
And the process itself, does it have like
the process is,
I don't want to say religious, but spiritual component?
It does.
Because some of the pieces that we're going to look at took hours and hours and hours.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's look through some of these pieces from your coloring book.
Okay.
These were pieces that you published in your coloring book that was quite popular in the St. Catharines area at the time that it came out. And
yeah, I sold.
You know what? People
hundreds.
On the internet, if you want one, just order one. We'll make one for you. So order up coloring books today. We've got here some beautiful work. Now these are, in our digital world and on a computer screen, your brain may not realize that this was actually created pen and ink, compass and pencil, hand-drawn work. Mm. And on your desk in front of you, you have a piece of artwork and you've got a compass and a marker. Why don't you just show us what your kit on your table is?
Well, I got the three geometer's tools include a ruler, a compass, and a pencil.
Right.
And that's and so you really you don't have to like super measure anything. You have to like have it fit on your page or whatever. So you like the mildest amounts of measure. Some math maybe in that regard of like where
the most of the measurement is in the dilation, would you call it, of the compass? What would you call that?
Yeah.
The range of it, maybe?
The range, the circumference.
Because once you hit that, you tighten it up and you stick to it.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I mean, for example, for this piece, and name that, that's the full flower of life.
Yeah. But it's the one, I think I used this one to get it approved to paint on the mural I painted.
Oh, okay. Well, since you mentioned that, let's bring that up. I got that here.
Yeah, like you'll see this becomes colored in on a brick wall.
Got 4 or 5 clips of some classic Sandor and Dylan moments.
Okay, right on.
That pertain to your career in what you called cosmic cognizance. So while I bring this up, tell me about their thought pattern of what cosmic cognizance is.
A big picture understanding and recognition of like what's going on at any given time in the universe.
You got a book in front of you. Speaking of cosmic, your book is called this isn't your book. This is a book by Michael S. Schneider, mm-hmm. A Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe.
Shout out Michael S. Schneider.
No small task to construct a universe.
No.
The mathematical archetypes of nature, art, and science.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you a geometer? Were you good in high school math?
I was okay.
Right.
I failed algebra, but I moved 3 times that year.
So what turned you on to this?
Well, sir, I kind of happened into it. I suppose not by accident, but just by providence, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming off some hard drugs,
Okay.
using another also hard drug, but it was a psychedelic, and so I told my dog to take me for a walk.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I had him on the leash. I was like, take me wherever.
This isn't Dickens, was it?
This was Dickens.
Dickens the dog.
Dickens the dog.
Okay.
And so he
Rest his soul.
God rest his soul.
Yeah.
He pulled me on down to the pier in St. Catharines, which is like right across from Port Dalhousie, if you know the region.
Right.
And it was an odd day. I was on a hallucinogen.
That can produce odd days.
But it was an odd day regardless of my state. It was the weather was warm. It was January 18th.
Okay.
But it was snowing anyway, even though there was like a warm breeze.
Oh, okay.
The wind was going almost every which direction. Like the waves weren't going properly in the lake. They were just like piling up, being like little pyramids here and there, and then so at this point we're like, wow, this is weird. I tell him, and then my dog,
Right.
and then I look up in the sky, and there's like not all clouds, but there are a couple ones above snowing. So the sky itself had this pattern that looked like when you shine a light across like gold and it shows up the writing or whatever.
Sort of like an iridescence?
Kind of like an iridescence, but gold but like running through with the iridescence. And it was all these circles stacked in a certain way, like the way like pool balls fit in each other's
Or like a closed packing sphere orientation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But overlaid with another one is what I saw.
And so that's what we consider the flower of life. But
So
sort
it-
of like,
it-
was it like domed across the sky?
No.
Or is it like,
It was just nice and all across it. And at the same time, oddly, was on the ground.
and this is what, 15 years ago or 10 years ago?
This is in January 2012.
Okay.
And then so I'm like, I can see how that is drawn. That's amazing that I'm seeing it in the sky.
So you didn't
Neat.
see did you see videos? Did you see
No,
on
so
YouTube?
What
Like where
happened
you,
was
because that's the same time that, for example, the Thrive movement videos came out.
It's a little before, but it's around the same time.
Yeah, that you may have come
I
across
ended up
that.
seeing it.
You ended up sort of encountering it in a
So what I
hallucinogenic state.
No. Well, I saw this and I didn't know it was the flower of life. I
You
just
had no
knew it was the
idea about
circle
that.
thing.
Okay.
So I went home and I didn't have a compass at the time, so I just used a nickel
Oh, okay.
and I just drew circles and made them like in a straight line and then
Right.
put them so they fit into the other side and then went over top to make the intersection.
Yeah, I'll be able to show our viewers what that looks like.
But then days go by and I'm watching kind of like remember like YouTube would have some pretty decent rabbit holes to dive into.
Yeah.
So I was on one that was called Hidden in Plain Sight to do with like architecture, hidden features of architecture that are just all across the world and
Right.
shared in most
Well, then
places.
there may be a very interesting clip for us to turn to, and it's from Nassim Haramein. We'll have him say his
into
name.
the rock. It's not carved, it's burnt into the atomic structure of the rock.
Flower of
in
Life.
some
And, Nassim here is saying that
extraordinary
it was
Nassim
burnt
has
great
decoded
into
the
the structure.
Osirian
It's
symbol
some
in
10,000
three
year old structure.
dimensions.
That's pretty sick.
Since
And so you
our
see there
world
on
is
screen
not
is the
two-dimensional, it makes
vector
sense that
equilibrium,
codes
the
relaying
cube
information
octahedron,
about our world
which is a shape that you can see here, and this is the shape that I've been studying. So what I'd like to ask you to do, Dylan, is could you show us a brief demonstration of how you use your Geometer's toolkit to produce a flower of life?
Sure. It is one of the easier ones. It was hard with a nickel, but not too hard. And then so when days go by and I'm flipping through stuff on the recommended on YouTube, it showed the the flower of life.
Right.
And I was like, no way, that's that thing I saw and drew. Mm-hmm. And then boom, sacred geometry.
Wait, so you accidentally invented sacred geometry?
No, I didn't.
You looked in the sky. You said, "Okay."
Sky. Oh, hold on, let me put this right here. Am I still?
It's kind of like reinventing the wheel, though. You think, well, you round out the corners and you put a axle in the middle and put it on a cart, and you're the guy who invented the wheel.
No, I was very much what does it all mean?
So we see here on screen that the vector equilibrium, there it is, has been all of its vectors and edges has had its spheres correlated to it, and it at the proper angle along its one of its vectors reveals that ancient pattern. Mm-hmm. And so that fusion of what we just saw, computer graphics, and an ancient symbolism has fascinated me since you and these other video series introduced the topics to me.
Well, it is terribly interesting on account of how real it is. And it's to do with, so this would be considered the unseen, basically like grid we're operating in.
Okay.
Energy grid, if you will.
Right. The isotropic vector matrix.
Basically. And then it's also combined with like some straight line other business, like in the example of Metatron's cube. So to do it, all you do is so I've got it centered just to be, so I could fit it on the page, whatever. I'll probably just draw one of those first.
Okay.
Real quick.
And this is, I think, called the seed of life.
The seed of life. And so it's the one in the middle there. But
we're starting with a circle.
So when you would do...
And you're finding an edge.
And so this will take 7 circles to create this piece.
Another way of expressing that is 6 around 1.
Yes. And then so you've got the new intersection is where you now put the point.
And at this point, we can point out, of course, the vesica Pisces.
The vesica Pisces right there, the football.
The football, the eye shape.
And so you want to get it right on so that all your circles are going to line up and all your little petals of your flower, your seed.
That's right. Any variation, and it starts to show.
Yeah.
And the further out, it shows even more.
And so it does help. It does. It gives you a moment of pause and paying close attention.
You shut out the whole world, and all that matters is that point and so that curve.
In this sense, it's like a moving meditation.
Okay, a moving meditation. And has that been a major motivation for all of the pieces?
Well, it really, really kept me going. Mm-hmm. I mean, the only reason I haven't done a whole pile as of late is I'm an old man getting there. I'm not that old. I'm 50, almost.
Right.
In a month.
Uh-oh.
But my eyes started going.
My eyes are 55.
So I got these dollar store reading glasses.
Right.
But they're tough to work with. Not really. It's just annoying. So I do mean to continue with my studies. Not studies, art. I don't know.
Like a practice.
Like a practice. That's what you would call it.
Yeah.
And so here we have the completed seed of life.
Excellent. Why don't you show the camera here?
I'll show the camera there. And so it's just 7 exact same size circles. And so were I to continue, I would use this as my next intersection for the point, and it would it would make more little petals, I guess you'd call them. I'm sure they actually have a real name. That's the thing. I basically just started experimenting, and then it quickly led into the...
Was it a case of asking questions where answers would just appear? So everything you've ever thought of and discovered has already been thought of and discovered and written into books. And then you're like, well, I got these questions, and you start realizing that there's these books that already know all the questions to all the answers, know all the answers to all the questions that you came up with.
Right. I had glanced at this book because my younger brother had. I'm borrowing.
Yeah, we're referencing a beginner's guide to constructing the universe.
Yes. But
the idea of 6 around 1 does correlate somewhat to the creation myth itself.
Sure.
Right? And 6 days of creation and 1 day of rest.
Mm-hmm. And it's the actual beginning stages of cellular growth.
Okay. Right.
For like a itty bitty baby getting started in the womb. Mm-hmm. It actually pulled a 3D version, obviously.
So you were talking about the if you keep the angles going, what we're seeing on screen here is you end up, now we have the fruit of life on screen. Mm-hmm. You end up with, here we are now coming together with Metatron's cube, correct?
Yeah, so bizarrely, this is relatively easy to draw.
Right.
The hardest part would be getting the circles in a straight line. But that's not that hard.
Right.
And then for the X that goes through the up and down line, you see how the circles, they fit together exactly.
Yes.
And so it's easy to get the other lines. And then you're connecting the centers of every circle, period.
Right.
And that's what you get there. And it just happens to have all the platonic solids in it.
Right, which we're actually, I believe, going to see in this video demonstration.
Oh, sweet.
And I'll just take a quick note here. At the very core of this shape is a cube octahedron, is a octahedral structure you can kind of see. Mm-hmm. And so that's the same study space that I'm working with here in 3 dimensions. And we'll just keep watching. Okay? The tetrahedron makes its magical appearance. Now, this video makes references to elements associating the tetrahedron with fire.
Sure.
I'm not sure why, but I'm sure that they know why.
Yeah, I guess.
The hexahedron, a.k.a. the cube.
Right, these are what would essentially be the fundamental building blocks of all manner of
matter itself. Of matter, life,
but even,
and geometry.
Even energy paths, the way energies like move.
Can I interest you in some demonstrations of energy paths, perhaps?
How so?
Well, let's take a brief minute, and we'll pivot over to hear what's in my stash.
Okay.
All right. So we've got here circular cube octahedron, and instead of the straight edges on it, we have here 4 great circles. 4 great circles, they're called, because they go all the way around. Each circle has 6 points around the edges. So each triangle is 1/6 of a circle. There are a total of 24 edges. There are a total of 12 vertexes. Right?
Right.
And that's not including my inner gutters.
Right.
I'm not counting that stuff.
No.
I'm doing an exterior loop. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself, if there's 4 circles, if you can walk coherently around the edges, then what if there's 1 circle that's been bent through 3-dimensional space? Okay. So 360 degrees is actually 360 degrees times 4 in 1 curve. And that curve bends and curves, but it's 1. It's coherent. Like if you were an ant walking along the edge, you wouldn't know. It's like a Mobius strip type theory. Okay? And so that led me to this construction. So I have here, the 4 circles have been flattened. All right?
Okay.
The 4 circles have been flattened into this. And we can see here, now we've fused together every 360 degrees into 1 structure, a helix. This is a helix structure of 4 circles together. So it's 360 degrees times 4. And actually, because it's 2-sided, times 8. So because you go all the way around and then you got to go all the way around. Mm-hmm. And so this got me building through folds only, no crossovers, no intersections, only bending and folding. Mm-hmm. It is possible to reconstruct this shape using folds.
That's pretty cool.
But how many different ways is it possible to do that? How many different ways is it possible to do that? Are the ways that in which it's possible symmetrical? How many ways are symmetrical and non-symmetrical? I am happy to report I have the answers.
Nice.
And I'll show you the method with which I achieved those answers. So I have here an analog. So instead of paper and folding, we're now using a 24-point loop. Each node here represents half a vertex. Okay? Now I've found structures that when you pull them together, I'm going to start with what I think is one of the most basic versions of it, the cross. So it will form into a cross. Okay, take a few seconds to bend it and twist it appropriately. And we will find this configuration. Now, this is only one of many configurations that are available to us, and I think I've discovered them all. That there are 11, 6 which are symmetrical, 5 which are non-symmetrical. This is the cross, and it's symmetrical straight down the middle. Mm-hmm. It's not symmetrical this way. It's not symmetrical that way. It's symmetrical only that straight down the middle. And if we bend each of these on 90 degrees, as if we're wrapping it around an invisible sphere or an invisible cube, because it is a cube octahedron,
right?
Cube octahedral shape. We bend the things together. We unite the half vertexes to their pair, and we've got a coherent edge loop all the way through.
That's fine.
And so that demonstrates that there's that it's possible. And well, one thing led to another. These are all of the non-symmetricals. So all of these are wonkies. None of these are symmetrical. And I want to actually draw your correlation to, if you just Google this phrase, how many nets are in a cube? There are 11. There are only 11 ways to orient squares such that you can actually fold them together into a cube. Because you just can't do it any more than that. Mm-hmm. Can't do it any less than that. It's 11. And it turns out, I didn't know it at the time, but I was doing an exact correlation to that. So here you'd notice every diamond shape is actually a square. Mm-hmm. And you can actually sort of picture that invisible square around it. And then that would be where you're drawing in that previously known math knowledge. Mm-hmm. We know that there's 11 nets. We know what those 11 nets look like. We'll impose a triangle on it, put the half vertex matrix through it, and you've got all of these different configurations. Now, one might ask, why? Well, there's a couple of answers, and some of it can be scientific, and some of it can be philosophical. There are many methods of routing through a source. Mm-hmm. You know, it says root stimulator on his hat. So root stimulator, exactly. I'd like to show you the trick, though. This is what really is making me interested in this. So not only did I show you the cross, that was in its square configuration, but this is also can be unwrapped into its triangular configuration, and I call this the crown. Nice. So every single one of these shapes can be folded up and unfolded into its triangular configuration, which, to my knowledge, is a discovery. I haven't seen any math papers, any graph theory papers, anyone acknowledge this particular realization. And so I feel like I have a duty of discovery to take the realization forward, to produce everything that's necessary with which to codify that knowledge.
Sure. To
turn it into something that's useful in a geometric, mathematical sense. Mm-hmm. And then I name them something cool, like the cross and the crown. That has some resonance to me.
Sure. And
I actually have somewhere, I have the rest of those. And through this podcast series, I'll be sharing more about these discoveries and my approach and how I've and what I've discovered in this approach. And I'd just like to say to you, Dylan, you're the man who introduced me to Metatron. And so had that not happened, I may not be here with these constructions in front of me and these discoveries in front of me. So that's why you're the first guest I brought in. I'm so pleased to have had you here today.
Well, thank you.
We've got a few minutes left to talk.
Okay.
Like 2.
All right.
So we didn't get to all the clips, but we'll add them in post.
Sure.
We've got a great demonstration from you, a nice demonstration from me.
That's pretty good with my wonky eyes. I used the dollar store reading glasses.
Right. That's right. Well, we're going to have to get you some jeweler's glasses and get you back in the game, bro.
Those are sick glasses.
Again, you can find Dylan. Let's take a quick look at your Instagram before we sign you off, okay? All right. You came all this way, people. You're at the end of the episode, and you haven't even seen his Instagram.
Yeah, my last post was right after my eyes were really...
So it's at Instagram.com/delinquent. That's not how you spell delinquent, is it?
Yeah.
Is that the normal spelling of delinquent?
Yep.
Okay, delinquent art music.
All one word.
And we're going to pop you down here to, I think...
I have some spiffy business
You got some spiffy work. Some of these pieces of... so, like, you've been in... you produced a coloring book, but you also produced things like painted and on walls and on other sources.
Yeah.
We did want to get to that clip. Maybe we'll end with that adorable clip.
Okay.
At the coffee shop. Here we are. Dylan's mural. And I'll switch over to the... Oh, good lordy. Is this working?
Front page of the Standard.
There's your dear ma.
There's my dear ma. I was more leaner and meaner.
And what happened? What's going on here today? So you had, on the side of the building, produced a Flower of Life. Were you calling it a portal at the time, or was that just us?
Yeah. Well, it's that one would take any of these pieces and stare at them until, like, you go into...
It's transportative somehow.
It's
transcendental somehow.
Kind of, yeah. Like, if you stare at it and just stare at it and you're...
Because you're seeing 2D, you're seeing 3D, you're seeing all these different shapes all at the same time.
Yeah, so it's like a portal.
You're pondering.
Yeah. That's why...
What?
That's what mandalas
You
are
mean
for.
you didn't literally step through the wall?
No, not actually.
Well,
but I was stoked to be on the front page of the old St. Catherine's Standard.
That's right.
Too much longer.
Here's another moment where you had some media attention in the sound. You got a nice story in the sound.
I did a contest.
That's right. That was pretty cool. A lot of people sent in coloring pages and stuff.
Sarah Martin.
Well, Dylan, has been really great to have you.
Oh, thank
people
you.
on the internet, please follow Dylan, and please start producing again. We want to see your work. We want to see you back in the saddle.
I'm gonna steady up.
We want to see you expressing the truth.
I'm gonna get my peepers working, so I can pop off some more of this.
That's right. Get out some fancy spectacles.
I do want the fancy spectacles so I can see good.
Okay, good to have you today.
Thank you for having me. Peace.